You pick up your phone to call someone, and it's already ringing. You reach a building you've never been to, but know exactly where to turn. You pause, wondering if this moment has already happened. And somehow, it has. These aren't just coincidences. They're the kinds of moments that stay with you, not because they're dramatic, but because they whisper something you can't explain. A slip in the pattern, a memory that doesn't belong, a feeling that reality just bent. This isn't about proving anything. It's about exploring the quiet possibility that some moments weren't meant to happen, and yet they did. Let's begin. There's a certain kind of moment that doesn't break the rules loudly. It just fails to follow them. Moments so subtle, so offbeat, that you second guess whether they even happened. But you remember. You always remember. You walk into a room and feel like you've already lived the next 30 seconds. A car honks at the exact rhythm of your thought. A friend sends you a message you were seconds away from sending yourself, with words you had just typed. These are the moments that glitch. Not enough to alarm you, just enough to leave a mark, like a wrinkle in the air, like the world forgot to double-check itself. Science will call it pattern recognition. Your brain searching for meaning in randomness. And maybe that's true, but the feeling isn't scientific. It's deeply human. A ripple of awareness that the world just blinked. Some people live their whole lives with nothing like this. Others experience them often, quietly, without explanation. They don't talk about it much, not because they're afraid, but because the words never feel quite right. Because how do you explain something that doesn't fit? Like standing in a place that feels familiar, even though you've never been there. Like watching a stranger walk by and feeling an ache of recognition. Like pausing mid-thought, because something about this moment doesn't add up. You can't report it. You can't take a picture of it. There's no proof, just a feeling. A soft knowing that reality didn't hold its shape. Some say it's just stress. Some say it's sleep deprivation. Some say it's the mind catching its own echo. But what if, just for a moment, we stopped trying to explain it? What if we just sat with the strangeness, the quiet surrealism of living inside a story that occasionally stutters? What if these moments aren't errors, but openings, little gaps in the timeline, loose seams in the world's fabric, not to fear, but to notice? And maybe noticing is the whole point. Because if reality is a loop, or a stream, or a simulation, then the glitches remind us we're inside it, not trapped, just aware. And awareness, even in the smallest dose, is what brings us back to the present, to the mystery, to the moment that shouldn't have happened, but did. Sometimes the glitch isn't in the moment, it's in the memory. You remember something vividly, a conversation, a detail, a place, but no one else does. They say it never happened. They look at you like you're mixing things up, but you're not. You remember it clearly, the feeling, the tone, the timing, everything. So what do you do when your memory insists something happened, but the world offers no proof it ever did? Maybe it's just a mental slip. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe your mind caught a thread from another version of reality, one that diverged just slightly, just enough to leave behind a trace. These moments feel small on the surface, but deeply disorienting underneath. You remember a childhood friend saying something that shaped you, only to find out they don't even remember being there that day. You recall a street you once walked, but now the map says it never existed. And the worst part is, you doubt yourself. You start to think you imagined it. But what if memory isn't about recording what happened? What if it's about holding on to what mattered? Even if the timeline changed, even if the moment is no longer valid, maybe your memory is real, just not from this version of events. Think of all the memories you've forgotten. Now think of the ones that won't let go. There's a reason they stay, even if they don't fit. It's easy to blame a faulty brain. We know memory isn't perfect. It rewrites. It fills in gaps. It edits without asking. But sometimes, the edit doesn't feel random. It feels intentional, like something was smoothed over, rewritten to protect the integrity of the timeline. And yet, something inside you resisted the rewrite, held on to the original. It's like dreaming about a house that doesn't exist, but still feeling homesick for it. Like recognizing a smell that no one else can smell. Like remembering the feeling of a moment, without any evidence it was ever real. These aren't failures, they're echoes. Leftover shadows from places you might have been, or could have been, or almost were. What if memory isn't linear? What if it drifts? Sideways, backward, even outside the script? And what if some of us are just a little more sensitive to those drifts? We carry memories that don't quite line up because we lived in versions of reality that no longer exist. Not long, just briefly, like brushing past a dream version of your life and bringing back a souvenir. It might be a word, a gesture, a story no one else remembers, but it's real to you. And maybe that's all that matters. Because reality is consensus, but memory is yours. And when your memories stop lining up with the world around you, maybe it's not your mind that's out of sync. Maybe it's reality that changed, quietly, softly, without warning. And somehow, you just happen to notice. Sometimes, what breaks the pattern isn't what happens, it's what's said. Words arriving out of nowhere. Sentences that seem perfectly timed, but impossible to explain. Like when someone says exactly what you are about to say, word for word. Or a stranger mentions something you've never told anyone. Or a conversation slips into a topic that only exists in your thoughts. You pause, you smile, but deep down, it feels off. Like something got ahead of itself. Like the dialogue reached you before the moment did. There are stories like this everywhere. A person dreaming of a friend, only to wake up and find a message from them waiting. A child saying something they couldn't possibly know. A loved one whispering a truth at the exact moment you needed it, even though you never said a word. Sometimes, it's not even what they say, it's how it lands. Like their words are responding to something you haven't said yet. As if the conversation is playing out in two timelines at once. And maybe it is. We think of time as linear. Words happen, then meaning follows. But what if time folds? What if, occasionally, meaning arrives before the moment? Not as prophecy, but as resonance. You hear something now, because a part of you already lived it, already needed it, already remembers it. And maybe the person speaking isn't aware of what they're doing. Maybe they're just the vessel, delivering something that had to arrive. Have you ever had a conversation that felt rehearsed? Not in a boring way, but in a familiar way. Like you've said these words before in a dream you forgot. It's not just deja vu. It's dialogue deja vu, an emotional echo. And once you felt it, you start to notice it more. You start to hear things that feel like they came from somewhere else. Not lies, not mistakes, just misplaced truths. There are also moments when the wrong person says the right thing. Someone you barely know drops a sentence that opens a door in you. Something you didn't even know needed opening. You ask yourself, how could they have known? But maybe they didn't. Maybe the words were just passing through, and they happened to be listening. Because maybe communication isn't just about language. Maybe it's about alignment. And when timelines align, even briefly, the right words find you. Not always from the person you expected. Not always in the form you were hoping for. But they arrive, and you remember them. Long after the conversation ends. Long after the person is gone. Because something about those words didn't just land. They belonged. They came from somewhere you can't point to. But you know they were meant for you. And maybe that's the strangest part. Not that someone said it, but that the universe let you hear it. Not every glitch is loud. Some arrive quietly as a choice that feels strangely familiar. A place that feels like you've already lived in it. A version of your life you never had, but somehow remember. These are the echoes. Not full memories. Not dreams, but impressions. Like your life brushed up against another version of itself, and something came back with you. You feel it when you make a decision and immediately sense that you've done this before, but not here, not in this life. Or when you meet someone and feel the weight of a long history you can't explain. Like you've known them in a version of time that no longer exists. Like this meeting is a reunion, even if you've just met. These aren't deja vu. They're deeper. They carry emotion. They carry weight. It's like walking past a house and knowing the layout. Like seeing a child and feeling grief for something you never lost. We don't talk about this much because there's no proof and no clean theory to wrap around it. But some people live with these echoes their whole lives. Subtle reminders that this version of reality might not be the only one they've brushed against. Maybe it's a parallel timeline. Maybe it's the remains of paths not taken. Maybe it's just the mind, dreaming while awake. But then, why do some of those dreams come true? Why do some of those echoes feel so precise, so right, even when they make no sense? There's a theory that time isn't a line. It's a field. Every possible version of your life playing out at once, like songs on parallel radio stations. And sometimes, the signal bleeds. A sentence slips in from a version of you that made a different choice. A feeling from a moment you never had, but almost did. A shadow from a path you didn't take, but still exists somewhere. And maybe, every now and then, you shift just slightly. Not enough to erase who you are, but enough to leave a trace. A name you don't remember learning. A memory that's not quite yours. A moment that shouldn't have happened, but did. We spend our lives trying to find certainty, trying to lock the world into something stable and explainable. But what if reality was never meant to be that clean? What if this life is just one version, and every choice sends out echoes into the ones that could have been? You feel it when you're walking home and suddenly wonder if you're meant to be somewhere else. You feel it when you sense the presence of someone who isn't there. You feel it when the world tilts, just a little, and no one else seems to notice. That's not a glitch. That's awareness. That's you, brushing against another timeline. And maybe you're not supposed to understand it. Maybe you're just supposed to notice, to pause, to feel the ripple, to acknowledge that the world, your world, is bigger than what you've been told. And maybe, just maybe, those echoes are the proof you've been looking for. Not that something is broken, but that something more exists. Quietly, softly, just beyond the version of reality you thought was the only one.